This is Jeanne Schul with Creative Healing, and I'll be sharing images of the Sacred Round, which were mandalas by the patients of Carl Jung that were on exhibit at Oglethorpe University Museum of Art in Atlanta, Georgia. In the introduction, Lloyd Nick tells us that the best art communicates subconsciously without the use of language. Our creative essence needs to be expressed. And in conclusion of the introduction, Lloyd Nick offers that this work that we're about to see, ultimately it is my hope and intention that the experience will encourage us to look within, explore further, and discover the mysteries tucked away in our own unconscious. The curator of these picture archives at the Jung Institute in Zurich offer that Jung remains the only major psychologist to have painted and made drawings and sculptures as part of his own inner development. And of course, now we all have a good sense of that, since most of us have seen the Red Book, are aware of the Black Book. So from 1917 onward, Jung actively encouraged many of his patients to create images of their dreams and fantasies. The reason that Jung suggested this is that he realized this approach helped his patients to confront the unconscious and to grasp the symbolic material. And of course, because Jung had done this himself, we hear him talk about this in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, in confrontation with the unconscious. It was his own process that he was suggesting to his patients. Then regarding what you are about to see, the goal of the collection was, and still is, to support the students of Jungian psychology in their learning about picture interpretation and archetypal symbolism. And that is the main goal in sharing this work with you, since you are also students of Jungian psychology. Regarding the mandalas, in Sanskrit, mandala means circle or holy circle. Observing a mandala, we cannot help but feel that the image communicates with us at a very deep level. The image usually evokes a sense of order and balance in us. It defines what is inside and what is outside. And it usually embraces the different aspects and elements of the psyche of the painter. The mandala is commonly painted in a regular schema, a geometrical form like a square or triangle, surrounded by a circle. This kind of painting has a calming effect upon the patients. The Great Round. The mandalas you will see express a timeless message. In our beginning is our end, and in our end, our beginning. And that every journey outward is also about the prospect of circling home again. That is by James Hollis. So in the first case study, this patient has painted more than 200 images over a period of 12 years in analysis. Jung indicated that she was a middle-aged female who spoke German. And the information that we have about her paintings was received on the reverse side of her artwork, which often includes titles. So as we get ready to explore her work, I'll remind us of what Sean McNiff's concept of aesthetic meditation or contemplation is. So as we prepare to sit with these images, he tells us, the simple process of looking is the most innate way of responding to art. This is what we do when we visit a gallery or museum. Take these expressions inside yourself. The pictures carry medicines, energies, creative spirits, and vitality that they will give you freely. Open yourself to them and let them soothe your emotions and activate your passions. So in this first image, which is entitled Bunta Suna, or Colorful Sun, we're offered an image here of certainly the archetypal source of radiance and heat. For this case study, there's no title, but we're looking at archetypal images here of the king. We see snake at his feet, the scepter, the image of the self, and multitude of geometric shapes. Again, there's no title for this image, but the self is now within the center of the circle with the king, while the crescent moon and the snake are relegated to the periphery. While there is no title to this image, notice that she's moving, this artist is moving into a clear mandala image. And I particularly appreciate the curves of the four spines of the people in the center, as well as appreciating the motion that's suggested by their arm gestures. There's a shift here in the depth of color that surrounds the circle and the way that the masculine is represented. We might also notice the rays of yellow above the head of white. In this image of the feminine, like the previous male image, it's in the center of the circle. Here, though, I also notice that she's grounded in that she's standing with a trunk and tree roots that separate out from the circle. And then, of course, entwined by the symbolic snake. In this image, with the title, Awakening of the Gods, note how the bodies to the left and right, these divine figures, curve to create the circular shape. And here I'm reminded that in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, Jung describes what he learned through his own morning ritual of creating mandalas, beginning in 1918. He wrote, "I understood that the self is the principle and archetype of orientation and meaning. therein lies its healing function. So Jung was becoming aware of the purpose for himself as well as his patients of creating this imagery. The title of this is Dream Image from Early June, Birth of an Egg. This is a very classic imagery connecting a snake and an egg. And then we'll segue into case 008. Jung published most of these images, and he described this patient as a woman of 60 who was artistically gifted, but with no knowledge of alchemy. She also has her comments on the reverse side of her paintings, and they were done in English. We're told the source of the images, dreams, fantasy, automatic drawing, was indicated in some cases by the painter herself, either as part of the title or in the comments. Although there's no title to this amazing image, she did have an association, which she indicated, the hatching of the egg. This image she just referred to as fantasy. This is what she referred to as an automatic drawing, and her association indicated, I feel as though the libido is beginning to stir. There is movement in the mind, fire and water. And again, as we continue with these images, note the elemental quality, often water, often thought about in Jungian psychology, is the collective unconscious or emotions. Jung published this patient's images in a number of books. And he tells us that this patient got stuck, which made it urgently necessary for her to look around for ways that might lead her out of the impasse, which brought her to Europe and into analysis. This patient was an American woman with an academic education who had studied psychology for 9 years and who had read all the more recent literature in this field up until that time. She began her analysis with Jung in 1928 at the age of 55. She tried watercolors and told Jung that painting them seemed to fill her with new life. And it's also noted that she became a Jungian analyst. With this image, she commented, while waiting for you to return, a vivid fantasy arose in my mind. I saw myself with the lower part of my body caught in the rocks, a very part of the earth indeed. I appealed to you, who seemed to be passing by, to help me. You touched the rocks lightly with your magic wand, and they broke apart, liberating me. I had a desire to depict this, but could manage it only in silhouette. For this image, she indicated struggle and development. Always a struggle went on between what my mind thought fitting and what my eye would accept. But always the eye was the final judge. as I could not bear to have the design look inartistic. My mind wanted a daylight picture, with the sunlight melting away the sphere, so to speak. I drew it this way at first, but the eye repudiated it and would accept nothing but a night scene and lightning. Something sudden, shattering, dangerous. Yet the eye agreed that the sphere must be so nearly broken away already that itself would not be injured in the process. The mind wanted blue as well as red in the coloring of the sphere, but the eye insisted on a small diluted blue-red in the very center. The lightning was associated in my mind with intuition, something sudden, illuminating, but a little dangerous. I felt the picture carried the future, suggestion that the development of intuition would release me from the bondage of the earth. For this image, the analysand indicated, the sphere was free in the heavens, held in equilibrium by equal and opposing forces. I thought of it now as a planet in the making. In this image, I began to see that the silver, which is Mercury, the messenger of the gods, the animus, should be inside the sphere. Then the black lines of force, indicating the current of the silver, seemed to become a black snake encircling the sphere. The black serpent was at first felt to be a terrible danger, something that was threatening the integrity of the sphere. So the first effort I made to draw represented a black snake completely encircling the sphere with a strangling grip and piercing the topmost point with his fang. Fire burst forth within the sphere. This fire, as I at first conceived it, was the effort of the sphere to expel the danger. This image is without commentary, although she does tell us it's the last of a series of 10. And this was image 16 in her series. As you can see, the mandalas getting increasingly clearer. Then we come to our final case, 25. And the identity of this artist and patient is Christina Morgan, referred to as Mrs. Morgan throughout. We can share her name because it's already in the public domain. Jung described her as a woman about 30 years old, highly educated, very intelligent, a typical intellectual, with an almost mathematical mind. She has a great deal of intuition, which really ought to function, but is repressed because it yields irrational results, and that is disagreeable to a rational mind. She got in a hole at about 30, which precipitated her analysis. And Jung explains, I'm pretty sure that the unconscious contains the solution. So I propose to my patient to watch its activity as given through dreams. So after a month of focusing on dreams, Mrs. Morgan was introduced by Jung to the practice of visioning, which became known as active imagination. Claire Douglas tells us that Jung taught her to focus inward, allowing space for her feeling sense to develop. She learned to avoid the strained over-rationalization that had masked her psyche, and she started to trust herself. Jung advised Mrs. Morgan, I should advise you to put it all down as beautifully and as carefully as you can in some beautifully bound book. He went on to tell her, it will seem as if you were making the visions banal, but then you need to do that. Then you are freed from the power of them. Jung continued to tell her, think of it in your imagination and try to paint it. And of course, he was explaining not to return to these visions or active imaginations, which were extremely compelling for her. Continued. Then, when those things are in some precious book, you can go to the book and turn over the pages, and for you, it will be your church, your cathedral, the silent places of your spirit, where you will find renewal. So as we consider the mandalas we've just sat with, we're told that they are considered products from the archetypal realms of the creative unconscious, and a slideshow of the individual's psychological development based on the personal journey of individuation of these patients. The veracity of his own discovery of the archetypal process of individuation was confirmed for Jung by these images, mandalas. And to explain that a little further, because Jung had first done this exploration with mandalas himself spontaneously, he did feel validated in his concept that they were an image of the self through the work that unfolded with his patients. It is important to remember in this exhibit, we are privileged to witness emotional Stations of the Cross, a slideshow of intimate psychological experiencing by some of Jung's patients. If you're not familiar with the concept of Stations of the Cross, particularly in Catholic churches and cathedrals, you'll see images on the wall that you can walk around the church and see the process of Christ's crucifixion. So that's that concept that he's sharing. Images make the invisible visible. The most outstanding characteristic of mandalas is that all the information is gathered around a center, holding the images together, just as the archetype of the self holds our psyche together. This explains why mandalas, as the fruit of active imagination, are often a part of Jungian psychotherapy. There are no shortcuts to soul work. Jungian psychotherapy tends to the soul. This process requires time and devotion to our emotions, to ourself, which is what nourishes the soul. As you have witnessed in this exhibit, the drawing and/or meditating on mandalas, as they connect to us to the personal and archetypal realms of psyche, can surely be the kind of psychotherapy that, with its images, moves the soul. And here are the references. Thank you.